book. He's written like 8 books. And this last book, he talks about how the fact of space exploration needs to become a morality for our whole life. So you have to be really careful with that kind of thing. Imagine if we were to take Teddy Roosevelt, for example, as our guy. His exploration is as good and valuable as it is something that prepares him for the spiritual exploration of truth, of relationships. If you cut off, you sometimes see these, like with Olympic athletes, they're absolutely incredible artists, but just terrible people. They're selfish, they're egotistical, they're in their own world, they're vain. They're living lifestyles that are just completely abhorrent to humanity. They're like beasts. But man, could they ever ski, or can they ever do these things? And you see that because there's a difference here between agere and facere. Well, you're going to have to make that same decision, because you guys are going to be going out into a life of ministry, facere. And yet you're supposed to balance your life of prayer, agere. Now, which is the most important? Well, it's kind of this one always, but pretty soon you just start doing this one. This is why the monk books that we're reading there at table are so important. They're talking to us about how the monk has to be purified to live here and let this go more and more. He lives in a cell, he accomplishes nothing, he feeds the fire. What does he do all day? He works, but this just out of bare necessity. He doesn't produce anything. He can't sign anything. What's the great thing the monk does, you know? If you're a great painter, no one will see your paintings. You're not even allowed to paint. Give it up. Right? Because that facere is not where the monk focuses his energies. And very quickly, you can focus it there. And you end up losing this whole savor of the sacrifice of your life. So if the apostleship, the apostolate, the SJI that you're founding becomes the thing that's keeping you alive, danger. Why? Because if it fails, then you failed. Well, no. But you didn't fail if you did it with great love. Yeah, you started there, but you ended up not doing it out of love every single day. You started just doing it because you had to do it. It needed to be done. You wanted to do it. It was awesome. There's no more love involved. So what we're teaching you here will have huge implications for the rest of your life. Because you guys, this whole balance between these two balances when the agere is the basis for the facere. And the facere brings you back to the agere with greater intensity, which makes you want to do even more so that you bring it back and forth. It's in this beautiful spiral that goes like that. But it begins with this upward thrust and not the downward. If you don't have this upward thrust, it'll end up starting off that way, and then there's just so much to do. And there's so much to do, and I need to do this. I need to do it even better, and I need to be doing absolutely nothing, but I become an artist, and I've lost love. And this is what Jesus condemns. Take a look at Revelation chapter 2. Verse 1 and following. Book of Revelation, chapter 2, verse 1 and following. To the angel at the church of Ephesus write, Thus says he who holds the 7 stars in his right hand, who walks in the midst of the 7 golden lampstands. I know thy works. So he starts by complimenting. And thy labor, and thy patience, and that thou canst not bear evil men, but hast tried them who say they are prophets and are not, and hast found them false. And thou hast patience, and hast endured for my name, and hast not grown weary. Well, that's pretty good, you know. I've known that you wanted to do that artistic center, and I was there when you laid at the bed at night, and I was there when you were crying alone, and I was there when you never gave up, and I saw how you've worked night and day, and you learned how to study even though you hate studying, and you were there in the classroom doing your homework, and I saw all that. And you're like, so he's going to be like, and therefore you are awesome. And then he says this, but I have this against thee, that thou hast left thy first love. Remember therefore whence thou hast fallen, and repent. And do the former works. It's interesting. He's not saying, don't do your works, just love. No. But do the works you did at first. What was the difference? It wasn't this type of work, which was work for work's sake. It was this type of work, which was work for love. Or else, and then look at how he warns him. I will come to thee and will move thy lampstand out of its place, unless thou repentest. Like, it's all or nothing. It's not like, well, God's like, but you know what? You really are a great businessman. God could care less. Couldn't care less. If you're a businessman, it's so as to increase your thirst. And the more thirst will make you a better businessman, to make you even more thirsty. But the businessman is not the end. The end is the thirst. But if you're not careful, I got so much to do, so much to do, so much to do. I was really proud. I invited a distinguished gentleman to come to one of my events. That distinguished gentleman has 4 young girls, and he's a young, distinguished gentleman. And he wrote me back, I can't come, I have to play with my daughters. That's awesome. And what did he miss? He missed the networking event. He missed, spending time with his professional friends. I have to play with my daughters. Well, that's a guy who's going to make it. He's going to be human. And no matter what happens to him, he'll have perspective. Because there's something more. Okay? So that's why this class is so important. We're focusing in on what art is all about, so that you can identify when you're doing it. And not allow it to take over everything. Otherwise, you become like what this is all about. So in today's class, of course, we're trying to be interactive as much as we can. I want us to focus in on artistic choice. What's the difference? What is it when I choose as an artist versus when I choose as a friend? To give you an example of this, I've chosen as an artist an incredible text I want you to become familiar with. It's by René Rilke. He's a German poet, Letters to a Young Poet. It's a book consisting of 9 letters that he wrote when he was 27 years old to a younger poet who wanted him to kind of guide him and make him a great poet. And so he wrote this book. But I just took out 2 excerpts. Because when you read it, you're really reading a real artist. Like, this is the way it works. This is a guy who's completely, this is an artist. And I just want you to read it and paying attention to, on the one hand, how attractive it is. And on the other hand, how limiting it is. And we're going to then have a discussion, to be interactive about what you think about this. So underline points that you find to be particularly interesting. Who would like to read for us? Someone who could read slowly, please.
I'll read.
Okay, thanks. So this is from Rilke to the young poet.
You ask whether your verses are any good. You ask me. You have asked others before this. You send them to magazines. You compare them with other poets. And you are upset when certain editors reject your work. Now, since you have said you want my advice, I beg you to stop doing that sort of thing. You are looking outside, and that is what you should most avoid right now.
Stop. Think about what that could mean. You are looking outside, and you should avoid that. Okay, go on.
No, one cannot advise or help you. No one. There's only one thing you should do. Go into yourself. Find out that reason that commands you to write. See whether it has spread its roots into the very depths of your heart. Confess to yourself whether you would have to die if you were forbidden to write. This most of all, ask yourself in the most silent hour of your night, must I write?
Stop. Think about what he's saying here. Go into yourself. Find out the reason that commands you to write. See whether it has spread its roots into the very depths. This is funny, huh? It's almost like his art is driving him. It's very interesting. Commanding you to write. Must I write? It's like, what is he describing here? Okay, go ahead.
Dig into yourself for a deep answer. And if this answer rings out in assent, if you meet this solemn question with a strong, simple, I must, then build your life in accordance with this necessity.
Okay, think. I have to play soccer. I have to go to Wall Street. I have to build another house. I have to have a third car. I absolutely, I must do the bar. Honey, don't do the bar. You have daughters. I have to be at the work. Why? Everything's going great because it could be better. And then the music starts and he looks up. Because as a warrior, you can't change what you really are. You and me don't have a choice. We're born with a killer instinct and we can't turn on and off like a radio. We have to be in the middle of the action. And then something, see what's going on? There's something that's impelling his freedom. Now you have to stop here. There's two ways to be impelled in freedom. There's an artistic way and there's an ethical way. When I'm in love, I have to be there. Right? So there's, and then but also when I'm an artist, I have to write, but there's a difference. There's a difference in how I engage in that. And if I make my must of an artist the must of my life, I'll be an artist. Vincenzo and I met with a guy who told us about that he'd met a billionaire. It's $36 billion the guy was worth. And he was able to spend 1 hour talking with him one-on-one. And he asked him what it takes to be a billionaire. And the man gave him 6 rules that if you follow, you will become a billionaire. And he said the first rule is this one. You have to buy a ticket. And then he walked him out to the window, rolled back the window and said, see all those people walking out down there? None of them wants to be rich. I said, what do you mean? To be rich, you have to pay the price. Pay the price of what, you could think. Now, he didn't say this, but what he meant was you have to pay the price about everything else. If you really want to reach your dream, what are you willing to pay for it? So right away you have to be really careful because on the one hand it could be a noble aspiration, like founding a school for autistic children in Cincinnati. Well, that's very noble. Wouldn't that be wonderful? What are you willing to pay for? I'll pay for my sleep, blah, 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 blah. But is there a limit where what you're paying for is not worth what it is? Is the school for autistic children worth your family? Well, you meet some people that'll say, I'm not going to have kids so that I can do good works. And see, is it worth it? Where's the line? Only by saying that ethics reaches a higher goal can I control art's imperatives. If I didn't see that ethics reaches something higher, then the highest thing on earth would be my achievements. And I could forego marriage to become a swimmer. Or like a lot of the mountain climbers. These mountain climbers will leave a companion dead so that they can get to the top of the mountain. There was a chilling scene on Everest where a guy had fallen down and was calling out for help, and the people kept walking past him because they wouldn't get to the top of the mountain. Now they also said, well, there's nothing we could have done for him anyway, but he was alive. They didn't even comfort him. The road to Everest is lined with bodies, dead bodies. You pass them. Some of them were from 1940, 1950. There's like, they have names from, I'm finally at the body of, Fred McGillicuddy. And you still see them laying there, not even decomposed. And no one takes them down because it would take too much energy to take them down, and you need your energy to get to the top. Isn't that a sad kind of situation? And yet this one guy died calling out for help, and no one helped him. Because, dude, you're on Everest, you shouldn't be here. You have to be ready to die if you're going to climb Everest. Well, you kind of like shake your head. You're like, there's something about this is not right? Like, but you see, like, what isn't right? But you have to. These guys are living for their dream. Isn't that the highest thing? You know? So here, when you're reading Rilke say, I must. You know, it's very true. But maybe he's missing out on something at the same time. It's very noble, but isn't there another I must, which is more important? So, because if that, leader that I had invited to come would have told me, I left my girls behind so I could go to your event, it would have been justified. It's just that how many times can you do that before it's no longer justified? The guy to get to the moon, he gave 8 years of his life. And at 80 years old, he's doing his documentary, he's looking back and he's saying, you know what? It wasn't worth it. I was selfish. And I put you through heck, and I don't even know you as well as I could as a daughter because of that. So that's what, it's kind of cool. The 6 rules to be a billionaire. The first one, you have to buy the ticket. Do you really want to be rich? Maybe the answer ought to be no. I don't. But if you do say yes, it is possible. You just have to have another yes that's even stronger. And that's like, yes, but that also means I've got to choose right now how I'm not going to lose my soul. Okay, so keep going. I won't interrupt much more.
Your whole life, even to its humblest and most indifferent hour, must become a sign and witness to this impulse.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but you see that? Okay, keep going.
Then come close to nature. Then, as if no one had ever tried before, try to say what you see and feel and love and lose. Don't write love poems. Avoid those forms that are too facile and ordinary. They are the hardest to work with, and it takes a great, fully ripened power to create something individual where good, even glorious traditions exist in abundance.
It's very interesting. He's looking for what's individual, what's inside of you. Instead of like, I'm looking for what's inside of others. It's the notice of an artist. Go inside yourself. Keep going.
So rescue yourself from these general themes and write about what your everyday life offers you. Describe your sorrows and desires.
Yep. Describe your sorrows. I'm just pointing out.
And desires. The thoughts that pass through your mind and your belief in some kind of beauty. Describe all these with heartfelt, silent, humble sincerity. And when you express yourself, use the things around you, the images from your dreams, the objects that you remember.
See, it's all coming from the artist. So we talked about that with the 7 steps: artistic experience, inspiration, choice, idea, choice. So he's just pointing that out. Now, in love, it's very different. It starts with the other. First love, the other is good. Intention, I want them to be my good. Deliberation and counsel, how can this be? It can be this way. I must do it so as to be with them. It's all dominated by the them. It's just the opposite. But if you go at art that way, it's going to be lame. It has to come from you. That's what makes it so awesome.
If your everyday life seems poor, don't blame it. Blame yourself. Admit to yourself that you are not enough of a poet to call forth its riches.
Put that on your mirror.
Because for the Creator, there is no poverty and no poor, indifferent place. And even if you found yourself in some prison, whose walls let in none of the world's sound, wouldn't you still have your childhood, that jewel beyond all price, that treasure house of memories? Turn your attention to it. Try to raise up the sunken feelings of this enormous past. Your personality will grow stronger. Your solitude will expand.
Ding. Read that again.
Your personality will grow stronger. Your solitude will expand.
Ding. Think about what he's saying. It's pretty amazing. Like, it's true for art, right? Like, just get in touch with yourself, man. It's all in you. How do you feel? What are your passions? What does that lead you to be, though? Isolated. Your solitude will expand. And there's nothing wrong with it. You just have to be able to recognize when you're operating in that realm.
And become a place where you can live in the twilight, where the noise of other people passes by, far in the distance. And if out of this turning within, out of this immersion into your own world, poems come, then you will not think of asking anyone whether they are good or not.
Read that again. That's such a good sentence.
And if out of this turning within, out of this immersion in your own world, poems come, then you will not think of asking anyone whether they are good or not. Nor will you try to interest magazines in these works, for you will see them as your dear natural possession, a piece of your life, a voice from it. A work of art is good if it has arisen out of necessity.
Whoa, what a great quote. A work of art is good if it has arisen out of necessity. Okay, it's going to be really cool because we're going to talk about artistic choice in just a second. And we're going to say that artistic choice, the choice comes as a necessity from within the inspiration itself.
That is the only way one can judge it. So, dear sir, I can't give you any advice but this: to go into yourself and see how deep the place is from which your life flows. At its source you will find the answer to the question of whether you must create. Accept that answer, just as it is given to you, without trying to interpret it. Perhaps you will discover that you are called to be an artist. Then take that destiny upon yourself and bear it, its burden and its greatness, without ever asking what reward might come from outside. For the Creator must be a world for himself, and must find everything in himself and in nature, to whom his whole life is devoted.
So it's pretty amazing, huh? Why don't you guys give me some feedback? What is he saying there? Who can give me a couple of the ideas that kind of summarize that for me?
Basically, you can't compare your art to other people's. It's not like a source of inspiration to say I have to be better than this, but it has to be something that like comes completely from within you and like drives you to succeed, and then it doesn't really matter what everyone else thinks because you know that it's true.
Okay.
Something he has to do. He can't. Like he can't see his life without it. It's part of him. And it's understanding himself. Because if he's trying to proclaim his message or whatever he's trying to do, if he doesn't understand himself, then it's not going to be what he wants it to be.
How does the artist create? Where does he look to create? Where ought he look?
Within. That's what he's saying.
Mm-hmm. And what specifically does he look at?
Memories.
But also his like life, and he should be living a life that inspires him.
His feelings, his emotions.
Does this resonate with you at all, Bree? Okay. I put a second excerpt. Who would like to read that one for us? Very good job reading, Vincenzo.
I can read it.
Thank you.
My dear Mr. Kappus, I have left a letter from you unanswered for a long time. Not because I had forgotten it, On the contrary, it is the kind that one reads again when one finds it among other letters, and I recognize you in it as if you were very near. It is your letter of May 2nd, and I am sure you remember it. As I read it now in the great silence of these distances, I am touched by your beautiful anxiety about life, even more than when I was in Paris, where everything echoes and fades away differently because of the excessive noise that makes things tremble. Here, where I am surrounded by an enormous landscape, which the winds move across as they come from the seas. Here I feel that there is no one anywhere who can answer for you these questions and feelings, which in their depths have a life of their own. For even the most articulate people are unable to help, since what words point to is so very delicate, it's almost unsayable.
Mm-hmm. Just think about that, it's really beautiful. What words point to something very delicate, it's almost unsayable. Yeah. It's kind of cool to think about that. Words point us to silence. Okay.
But even so, I think that you will not have to remain without a solution if you trust in things that are like the ones my eyes are now resting upon. If you trust in nature, in what is simply in nature, in the small things that hardly anyone sees and that can so suddenly become huge, immeasurable. Is this like a direct quote? Is like he intentionally always capitalized things?
I guess so, yeah. I don't know why. If not, it could just, that kind of looks like a typo from the internet type of thing. I don't know. You never know. These guys have weird
I
thoughts.
didn't know if he was trying to like represent something with that.
Yeah.
So suddenly become huge, immeasurable. If you have this love for what is humble and try very simply as someone who serves to win the confidence of what seems poor, then everything will become easier for you. More coherent and somehow more reconciling, and not in your conscious mind perhaps, which stays behind, astonished, but in your innermost awareness, awakeness, and knowledge. You are so young, so much before all beginning, and I would like to beg you, dear sir, as well as I can, to have patience with everything unresolved in your heart, and to try to love the questions themselves as if they were locked rooms or books written in a very foreign language. Don't search for the answers which could not be given to you now, because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything, live the questions now. Perhaps then, someday far in the future, you will gradually, without even noticing it, live your way into the answer. Perhaps you do carry within you the possibility of creating and forming as an especially blessed and pure way of living. Train yourself for that, but take whatever comes with great trust. And as long as it comes out of your will, out of some need of your innermost self, then take it upon yourself and don't hate anything.
That's one of the most famous, that probably is the most famous quote from the book. You'll find this like on posters and stuff people make. Have patience with everything unresolved in your heart. It's just a kind of a beautiful like thought. 'Cause a lot of times you guys are this way. What am I supposed to do after SJI? Have patience with everything unresolved. It's okay that it be unresolved. Try to love the questions themselves. Don't search for the answers which could not be given to you now because you're not able to live them. The point is, live everything. Live the questions now. It's kind of a neat little advice. So I put it in there so that you kind of, it's one of those things that you'll see if you pay attention to Hallmark cards and stuff. Perhaps then, from start, you'll gradually live your way to the answer. Blah, blah, blah. But once again, we see in the last sentence there, as long as it comes out of your will, out of some need of your innermost self, take it upon yourself. What's something you got out of this one? What's he saying? It's less clear. So, don't beat yourself up. agree. How about some interaction? You're always just trying to take notes. You're never interacting. Can you give us some interaction here? What's an idea you're taking from that second one? What stands out to you?
I don't know.
It's all right. Just live the questions now. Anyone have anything?
I think it's kind of like, don't miss out on your life right now because you're always searching for the answers.
There's a
But
role.
like by actually living where you are, you're going to find the answers.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, as long as you're going about it as if things were locked rooms or books, like not.
Yeah.
If you're actually living it.
Uh-huh. How about you, Vincenzo?
I liked he said, he used the words beautiful anxiety. So I think a lot of times we think of anxiety as like the worst thing ever, but maybe in this case, for this guy, he's overlooking that in his life. So that, we talked about wonder a lot in this class, right? So maybe just living within that wonder and that anxiety about that is important.
Okay, good. Well, that's wonderful. All right, so this gives you a good example. I'm trying to furnish you because I can tell you lots of stuff and then you can just be like, it's just words. So I'm trying to give you examples. Yes, last time we looked at that lady from Eat, Pray, Love and her whole thing about art, and she talked about inspiration. Remember the artist that would run into the house? Yeah, as the came thundering down, Ole, all of that. And then this time we have another artist, and they're describing a vision of the world that is very proper to them. If we were to analyze it philosophically, we say, well, what does that choice mean? Because the language he uses doesn't speak a lot about choice. It's kind of like it's a must. Other words that you could use behind that would be something like it's automatic. Like, he's saying things like go into yourself and see what is there. It's already present in you. You don't have to choose anything. You have to let it come. There's almost a type of passivity, right, in artistic choice. Still yourself. Go within yourself. Let the noise of others pass you by. There's an immanence. And that's a very strong theme. Give me some more themes. Based upon what you've read there, some other of your thoughts. Artistic choice. How does it happen in the artist?
It's a necessity. I mean, I guess you have a must up there.
It's all right. Keep going.
Like it drives everything you do. It's kind of like something that you can't escape.
Oh, good one. Why do you guys think that artists are so critical of their own work?
Because I think, like, for him, like he was saying, like a tree taking root in you, so it's almost like it's a life source that's making you grow. So, I mean, it's like an element of yourself, which is why, and I think people are just naturally critical of themselves.
Well, that and you're constantly editing of like what to take away or what is. You're getting rid of the bad, essentially. So, like, you're criticizing in order to have a good end.
But how do you know when it's good?
I think
You
maybe
just know.
maybe some artists actually understand that it comes from within themselves, and when you're looking at your art or reading it or whatever, and it doesn't show what's within yourself, I think maybe you're not happy with that. So you can't see that expression of yourself within your art. Maybe that's why they're so critical.
Or maybe like even you're critical because like you're seeing something in another artist that you're trying to achieve and you haven't yet, and so you're critical because you just haven't experienced that yet.
Very good. I'm going to add a big word here. Ideal. It doesn't summarize or negate the rest, but it's an additional concept that I'd like to add to it to kind of lead our conversation forward. The inspiration, which is at the source of the choice, is generative of an idea that doesn't exist. And the process of art is to make the idea exist. But the idea comes first. Right? That means that the artist is facing a confrontation between the matter of the world, the time at his disposal, the skill of his hands, and the idea that he possesses. So when you hear idea here, I'm going to call it the artistic idea because it's not the same thing as like a thought. It's the possible project. But what's possible, it's like me saying, we're going to create a fundraising student body. That would be a possible project. It makes total sense in my head. As an inspiration, my students are going to fundraise their salary. And the possible project, it exists in a state that is marked by the ideal. There's nothing to get in the way of that. We give a book, we give a victory guide, we give a space of time, we promise all help. A student, knowing that they have to raise money, will use the book, the victory guide, and the promised help over a course of time, and will raise the money. Whoa! Put that puppy on paper. And, boom. We'll put it on paper, put it on the website. Now we got a program. Ideal. It's possible. When you have to then wrestle with the realism of our talents, our time, our motivation, to actually get the student body through the tuition fundraising process, that isn't ideal. The realism of it requires adjustments, fight, not giving up, pushing through, not just from the student, but also from the artist that's concocting it. Leading a student body through their fundraising is an incredible endeavor of not giving up, of creativity, of thought, of meeting. Even when you said October 1st, you're going to give me your battle plan, you didn't get a single battle plan from either of the people. That's okay. You're not going to quit. You're going to give up. What are you going to do? Can you punish them? Should you punish them? How could you punish them? Would that help? What's the out? Now you're taking that matter, this possible project, artistic idea, when I choose it, becomes a battlefield. Because then I have to implement it by work. And that's where you're transforming the matter. That is almost always a source of frustration for the artist. Almost always. This is why like if you're really a poet, you're like possessed by one comma. Should there be that comma or should there not be? And nobody can tell you but you, and you're wrestling with yourself about that comma. You're wrestling with yourself about that one word choice. And you write it out and you're happy. You read it the next day and you rip it up and you do it again. And he's like, what's driving you? Well, there's an idea inside of me. What does it look like? I can't even tell you. If I could tell you, I would have it. But every time I try to say the words, it doesn't fit. See? The colors aren't right. The line is terrible. The eye is off. That's the painter. This is garbage. It's like, what's going on? Why this frustration of the artist? It's fascinating, right? You see these people, they're just wrapped up in their own, It's because they have something inside of them that they're trying to bring into this world. And the world can never measure up to the idea. When it does, and to the degree that it does, you have ecstasy. The artist is like, I've captured it. But it's a rare thing for an artist to be able to say that. And then you're stuck with the phenomenon of people that don't appreciate it. Like when you play the harmonica masterfully and nobody even cares because they don't have any idea how to appreciate it. Or when you give the best beer in the history of humanity to somebody on a trail and he's like, I don't even like it. You see, that's the frustration. Yeah. So what you need to get out of this is, in this context, the artist that makes a choice, what is it that he's choosing? He's choosing amongst many possible projects the one that imposes itself for him to implement. So the inspiration makes possibles. But this possible project, for it to become an idea, it needs to be accepted. The mark of the choice of an artist is a kind of yielding to the force of attraction of an ideal. Very similar to the choice in ethics. The difference is that in ethics, though, it's a real person. This is an ideal person. In an ethical choice, you'll also have, ahead of it, you'll have a love that precedes, and then you'll have an intention that imposes itself. Here, this intention is something that you yield to. It's a type of yielding. But the choice here is of the means to an end. Whereas the choice of an artist is of the end itself. I will achieve this thing. And my work is finished when I have that finished product in matter. So in the choice of an artist, an artistic choice, I am choosing my destiny. It's not quite the same thing when it comes to an ethical choice. An ethical choice, I'm choosing how, the means, how it is that I will come to my destiny, so to speak, in the same words, that already exists. So it almost comes to share in my destiny instead of creating my destiny. So you see the difference. I yield in ethics to the demands of the fact that my children need me to be with them in an afternoon. And so an ethical choice, I will hit that mark. I will feed that heart. My girlfriend is crying again. Ethical choice, yeah, well, that's what it means to be the friend of this girl. If my girlfriend's crying again, well then, I gotta comfort her again. It would be unethical of me, it would be wrong of me to not do that. Say, you shouldn't be crying. The realism is, she's a crier. So either choose her as a friend, or don't. But if you're going to choose her as a friend, that means you have to be there and comfort her all the time. But as an artist, I could be like, I don't want to have a girl. Do I want to have a girl that cries? A girl that doesn't cry. A girl that doesn't cry is so much better. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to live a life with a girl that never cries. Now, where can I find her? Stop. You're crying. Don't cry. Because I have to find the person that doesn't cry, because my life is one with girls that don't cry. See how that works? So stop crying, stop crying. It's actually the girls that do this more to boys. This is a very common thing. A woman has a really hard time. She'll want her husband to be the husband she wants him to be. You're not crying, you're not leading. It's like, because I'm not that way. It's like, wow. It's like there's a journey, because she has to let go of the fact that she wanted to have cotton, this, and flowing in the breeze, and a big Ford.